welcome to the Friday Fraudster podcast. Join them as they discuss sad, funny, and sometimes disturbing fraud stories. Be sure to catch past episodes on your favorite podcasting platform or go to www.fridayfraudster.com and grab some CPE while you're there.
Hey.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Friday. So listen, Christine, Thomas.
Did Rob freeze on us? No, he's good.
Let me ask you guys, what's your goal?
Oh man,
that was terrible. That was horrible.
Yeah, I know. I'm full of horrible, terrible things. But at least it made a few people laugh. If you laughed and you're listening right now, just let me know if you laughed at it. I know it was cheesy. But no, seriously. Okay. Let's get down to it this week. You guys ever play sports as kids? You play sports? What did you play, Christine?
Starting from middle school, this might surprise you, I was in wrestling.
Whoa.
Yep, volleyball, basketball, softball, soccer.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. Which one was your favorite?
Soccer actually really was.
Really? Soccer. Okay. So the ladies are playing now, the World Cup. Who's your team? Who are you rooting for right now?
The U.S., of course.
The U.S., of course. All right. So look, Thomas, did you play sports, man? What did you play?
I did. I didn't, not near as many as Christine did, but no, I played tennis from the time I could basically hold a racket up until senior year of high school. And then I played soccer from probably about 5 years old till 12 years old because people could suddenly kick the ball all the way across the field. And I did not have that ability yet. So I ended up having to give up and stick with tennis. But yeah, I played too for quite a while there. How about you, Robert?
Oh, man. So I played American football. I also played soccer, or the other football, probably the real football, right? Because you actually do use your feet.
You got to say it right. It's football.
Football, right. Now, my friend Sona will probably correct me on that, right? Football. But no, I played, I played tennis and baseball. And then I realized I sucked at both of them. So I just said, you know what? This is not going to happen. You know what? Here's a fun fact, though. I played baseball 1 year. And the 1 year I played, we actually won the championship. So I do have a baseball trophy.
Nice.
And I contributed absolutely zero to getting it. You know what? I take that back. I got one hit during the year, and it was an inside the park home run.
Nice.
Hey, it works. It still counts.
Yeah.
It does still count. Here's
all right. I gotta call a timeout on you real quick here because Stephanie over here in the comments says that she was in gymnastics for a few years. Stephanie, I'm actually in San Antonio, Texas right now because my son has a gymnastics camp Saturday and Sunday. So that small world. I love when I hear about other people in gymnastics. It's a fantastic sport. So sorry, Rob, I had to interrupt you there.
No, that's great. That is great. Wait a minute. You're at a gymnastics camp, and where are you?
Nice and hot in San Antonio, Texas. Okay. I'm currently at Fiesta, Texas. Watching roller coasters in the background. But
now, Amani says football in Africa is soccer. Yeah, Amani, outside of the U.S., football is soccer everywhere. We just decide to screw stuff up. We do that a lot with a lot of different things, though, right? Mm-hmm. Michael says he loves watching soccer. Now, I remember, though, I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I played sports, often money was hard to come by, like even equipment. When I played football, American football, we had to borrow equipment. I remember I played with a borrowed helmet, even the pads. And it was hard to get money and to raise money because, well, everybody was just poor and broke back then. Did you guys have a similar experience?
You can go first, Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
You're the gymnastics parent. You know about costs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this camp is a couple of $100. All of the grips that they use are a couple of $100 each. And then, playing tennis, I went through tennis shoes every 2 months. I went through new rackets, depending on how my emotions were. I would break rackets quite often sometimes. And yeah, it gets expensive quick.
I did a lot of the school sponsored sports, so we didn't have a lot of like the camps and everything else. Or we would do this in the summertime. We would have recreation, so you paid the city $10 to join a team. But other than my shoes or my glove, so my parents did have some expense there. But even when I played basketball, my parents were not dropping $200 on getting me a pair of Jordans. We went to Shopko and just found a pair of tennis shoes. They knew I wasn't going anywhere with sports, so.
Yeah. So I remember when I played, one thing that we would have to do is we would have to corral the parents together, and we would say who's going to bring what snacks for the concession stand and for the team at halftime. Right. And every time you turned around, some parent would say, I'm going to bring the cups. They would take the easy way out. Right. And then certain parents had to man the concession stand. And that's how we worked. But nowadays, you have these full-fledged associations where they take up dues, and they have like a treasurer and a secretary and then someone who's in charge of field operations and stuff like that. That is amazing.
I was vice president on one of those booster clubs for gymnastics last year. So yes, it's quite a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so how rich is that booster club, Thomas? You got
Well, I'm at Six Flags, not Disney. So that tells you how rich it wasn't.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
I know we were looking at a volleyball camp for my daughter. So she enjoys playing it or whatever, but it's almost, she's going to be a freshman in high school. And it's like, you almost have to put your kids into these camps and everything else to get them good enough to make the teams. I was honestly a little happy she said no, because I think just the summer camp was probably $900. And that was just to play for the summer. So that's $900.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Now, Amani says that her nephews take snakes. I'm assuming that might be plates. I don't know. They even do dinners and invite them to pay for fundraising. Yes, that's the thing. It's big business nowadays. If you look at some of their websites, you can see that there's some fancy stuff going on because they talk about banquets, awards banquets, and stuff like that. I'm like, wait a minute. We just went to the field house and they just gave us our little plastic trophy or ribbon or whatever,
Well, and I kind of understand that, Robert. I'm coming from a little bit of a different perspective. So I have a neighbor down the street. His job is he coaches basketball. Like he does skills camps for basketball, and that's what he gets paid to do. That is his career. But I've also heard on the other side of things is it's one of those investments that they say pays out, but you're never guaranteed to pay out on those. Like, even if you look at the statistics for how many high school athletes actually get a ride to college, and then the percentage of kids that play in college, how many of them go pro? But I'm getting a little off subject.
No.
All that money that people just pour into it.
But to your point, it is an investment now. Sometimes it is an investment, Now our buddy Mike Hurst is here, and he says, sticker shock. I'm suddenly feeling less bad about $300 a month for 2 kids in Taekwondo. $300 for 2 kids? Oh man, that's actually good.
That's really good.
Mike, I sent you an email, man. Check your email. I sent you an email. You sent me one, then I sent you one. So check your email. But isn't it usually like $300 per kid? I think $300 a month for 2 kids is actually pretty good.
That's
what
not
say
bad.
you, Thomas? Yeah. Yeah, well, never mind. Thomas already responded.
I would kill for it to be that low. Absolutely. Right now for gymnastics, just gymnastics, just the tuition is $500 a month, and it's another, I think, $300 or $400 a month during the competition season for all the competition costs. So yeah, you're talking about $1,000 a month for gymnastics for us. Yeah, Not cheap.
You haven't even touched on how much it costs you for their uniforms, Thomas, because they probably have what, 2 uniforms at $120 to $300 a piece. And every
Yeah.
competition, you're getting a new uniform, aren't you?
No, we don't get new uniforms each time, but we get a new uniform each year, or almost every year. So yeah, uniform, but grips. The level that my son's at now, the grips are about $150 each. You have 2 sets of grips for gymnastics. So yeah, but he's learning not just about possible for college and stuff, but the life lessons he's learning. Overcoming injury. Learning how to pick yourself back up, that kind of stuff. The lessons he's learning, it's worth the money, and it's worth driving to San Antonio and Oklahoma and other places to do gymnastics. So it's worth it. It's just, yeah, it's not cheap.
So now with all of this money floating around, I think that these associations have got to have some sort of good internal controls and a good governance structure. Now, see, if this is your first time listening on the Friday Fraudster, we talk about fraud, but we have fun with it. So somehow, some way, we always end up coming back to fraud. We may go all around the world, even to Disney, to get there, but we eventually bring it back to the topic at hand. Now, I'm imagining, though, you've got to have some strong internal controls with all of this cash floating around, which brings us to our story for today. A couple has been arrested because they are accused of stealing a bunch of money from a soccer association. But they didn't just steal it like to pay for bills or because they were hungry or because they had mouths to feed. As Kelly Paxton usually says, most people, when they steal, they go to Disney. So apparently this couple spent a lot of money on a fabulous Disney vacation. What do you think about that?
They always got to spend it on something crazy, right?
Always on something crazy. Now, they're saying that the total dollar amount so far that we know of is about $91,000, and it's from a youth soccer league in Old Bridge Township.
Was that 91,000 over just like one season, or do you know how long that that time period was for them to get that much? Because that's a lot of money from just one soccer organization in a small town.
That part I could not tell, and here's why. So they didn't directly say, because the wife, and it was a husband-wife team, the wife was the organization's secretary from 2011 to 2015. And then from 2015 onward, she was the president of the association, while the husband, his position, it's saying that he was, I just said it a few minutes ago before we went live and I've forgotten again, but he had some sort of, he was the league's field director. So he was the league's field director. So I'm not quite sure how long the fraud occurred, because apparently she was in a leadership role since 2011.
Yeah, and I think the Facebook post from the police department said theft of movable property, a conspiracy to commit theft, and fraudulent use of a credit card.
Yes.
And it took them 6 months in the investigation. But I think they were out of their positions by then, were they not?
Well, it's hard to tell, because when you look at the league's website, it didn't have anyone listed as president. So I'm assuming she's no longer president. But I didn't see anyone listed as president. And I checked it before we went live. So it's hard to tell. Now, I will tell you, it says that the league itself started an investigation because they saw some discrepancies in bank statements. So that leads me to believe that either A, they didn't have any controls over the bank statements initially outside of these two or one of those two. And then at some point, someone decided to check and something popped up. Now, let's talk about that one charge, the immovable property. That is usually something that you give to that is usually something someone is charged with if they have stolen some property that is over $75,000, and then they move it from one location to another. So that makes me wonder, what could that $75,000 item have been? And then the other items between 75 and 91 were probably the trips. And then they said that they also used the money to purchase an extravagant birthday party for their child.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he did take care of the landscaping, but I doubt there's a mower that they have that's worth $75,000. I mean, because I looked up their property. He could use it on their land. It's a pretty decent sized piece of land. Because I'm nosy like that.
I don't know if I had the opportunity to buy a $70,000 piece of equipment, I would do it. More power.
Well, nowadays, John Deere, the tractor company, they use artificial intelligence on their tractors. So maybe this was an AI tractor that cut the grass all by itself on demand, and maybe it was $75,000.
And it did a beautiful pattern, the checkerboard pattern that you love to see on the soccer fields. They're making it pristine.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, Stephanie, I think this is Stephanie, says, yep, this is Stephanie. Stephanie says, having spouses involved in an organization together without oversight is not a good idea. Here, not a good idea at all.
Mm-hmm.
She also says maybe they stole an RV or a bus. Well, maybe they bought an RV or a bus, Stephanie.
Well, on their Google picture, they do have an RV in their driveway.
There you go.
Because I was thinking that as soon as I pulled it, I'm pretty sure this has to be their house right now, because it looks like the Google Street View has a date of June of 2023. And they purchased the house December of 2022.
Ooh. Oh, wow. Okay, so let's think about the things they said. Theft of a movable object of over $75,000, credit card fraud, and conspiracy. So I'm wondering if the association had a credit card, and if they were making some of those purchases on the association's credit card to bypass any controls that someone else may have had looking at individual bank payments. So maybe they were running through the credit card.
Well, and it said what? Amazon purchases.
Yep.
They all utility bills for their home.
Yep.
Keeping in mind the old bridge, that's where they used to live, and since then they've moved. Yeah, I don't know. It just kills me. Like somebody else mentioned, it's sad to steal from kids' activities. And these parents pay a lot. So I went to the soccer team that they essentially, or organization that they worked from. So right now they are offering 2 camps. The camps are each 3 days. To attend the 2 camps, it's $485 per kid. Wow. Yep. They have a travel league, and what a lot of parents that might not have kids understand, I know we have it here, is a lot of times if you do travel tryouts, you have to pay a fee to try out. If you don't make the team, you don't get that money back. Plus your annual dues for that team. Travel team can be up to $1,200 based on a Google search. So you're almost looking at $1,700 per kid per summer, because these are all summer things that are going on.
Wow.
So it's not hard for them to make that kind of money.
Yeah. Wow. So if they got 40 kids into that camp, that would be about $20,000 with just 40 kids. And it's not that difficult to get 40 kids into a camp, especially a soccer camp. Wow. No. That is amazing. Because then I wonder how much the coaches at the camps would make. And I wonder what the net would be. But yeah, wow.
Robert all of a sudden has a new business plan. Robert's going to be starting a summer league next summer. Well, further down at the end of the main article here, it even talks about that there was a nearby group that had a very similar thing, and they had $400,000 stolen there over about a 3 or 4 year period. So you would hope, if you hear about something in your industry or your sport or whatever, and there's a fraud like this that goes on, maybe you might want to make sure it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's what has me thinking too. If you are in association like this and you can have $400,000 stolen from you and you really didn't notice it, it didn't hurt you, are your prices really fair? And I know most businesses are in the business of making money, but I think with associations like this, I'm not sure if profit is actually the motive, unless it is, right?
Well, we used to have a soccer league here in the town that I live in. And so now we have soccer leagues in other towns around us. Ours was one of the cheapest ones. So like I could register my child for a soccer league in the summer and it cost me $35, maybe 40. They would get t-shirts. They didn't have jerseys. But then you have like the MLS coming in from the bigger cities that are building up these clubs around us. And it is one of those things that it's like, hey, do I want to go where there's better coaches? So yeah, it's going to cost you $1,200 for your kid to go to the summer soccer thing. And there's people that are driving their kids 30, 40 minutes to get to a better club league so that they can get better. They can make those teams when they get into high school, because you are looking at money that they could potentially get for college. I mean, especially now with what the NCAA, so your likeness, so now they can pay students. So now you don't have to worry about the whole thing of D3 colleges can now give full riding scholarships because they can pay these kids to come play D3 if they get people to donate more money to pay for their college.
Now,
that's an never-ending cycle.
That's an interesting perspective that you bring up. So let's get everybody else up to speed. You just talked about NIL, name, image, and likeness. And for those, especially those outside of the U.S., and maybe even some people in the U.S., kids in college can now be paid for their name, image, and likeness, meaning their jersey, their name on a jersey, anything with their likeness on it. Historically, that was not the case. And if you think about it, you have a lot of kids in college sports who are popular and famous. And now because of social media, some of them are actually more famous for their social media antics than they are for the actual sport that they play. And with that said, there are a lot of kids who are in college who are now millionaires because of name, image, and likeness licensing. And so now this really is an investment. And so if we had these kind of thefts prior to NIL being extremely popular, what's going to happen now? These organizations really need to have internal controls, especially surrounding cash, credit cards, bank statements.
Right.
What's Thomas?
No, absolutely right. Sorry, I'm having to hit the unmute button here. It's getting a little loud behind me. Sorry, but yeah, it's and not only the controls around these organizations, right, but all of these people who are in gymnastics. There are multiple gymnasts that have YouTube channels, and they're getting actually like multimedia marketing degrees, and so they're using their channel kind of as their resume in a way as well. And my son follows multiple gymnasts that are like on the Stanford team and some of those, and they need to make sure they have controls for their sport, but then also, how many YouTube stars have been stolen from because they trusted people and they weren't being protected with their own likeness and image and such. So yeah, it's a vicious cycle that you always have to be mindful of. Anytime you're trying to, if there's money involved, you need to have controls in place.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Now, Stephanie says she was the registrar for a Girl Scout day camp with over 300 girls. Can you imagine? Wait a minute. Let me see if I can make the math here in my head. Accountants can't add. 300 girls. Let's just say if it was just $100. What is that? Excuse me, that's like $30,000. Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was a day camp, it was probably on a weekly basis, and it was probably several hundred per week per girl. Wow.
It adds up quick. And if you do it right, then you have the day camp in like the morning, and then you have the day camp in the afternoon. Now you can double it up.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What, our kids are commodities nowadays, it sounds like, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She says it was only $65 a kid, which still
Okay.
though times 300 is a lot though.
Mhm.
Wow.
Well, Stephanie brought up another point, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. Having spouses involved in an organization together without oversight is not a good idea. Totally agree with that. I have all three of my kids are in different sports right now. The thing that's really hard with that, they're constantly begging parents to help out and getting involved with like running concessions and everything else. I'll work concessions. I don't have time right now to be a treasurer or anything else. So you do see where it's like you have the coaches and then the coach's spouse is running the concession stands, or you do have that camaraderie with the spouses. Me growing up, when my sister was in middle school, she's older. My parents did run the athletic association. My dad was the president. My mom was the treasurer. We were in that household. So, yeah. I mean, there was no oversight. There was zero oversight. I remember coming home from school at times and my mom would have the cash boxes and her and my sister would be sitting there counting everything before they would deposit it. There was no oversight.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think that begs some additional questions though, because for the ones that actually have a lot of money, if they're still asking the parents to volunteer at the concessions, could that be a red flag? And just hear me out for this. If they're so expensive, oftentimes we pay for convenience. We pay money to be convenienced by things or to not be inconvenienced. And you know good and well, there are concession management firms out there, companies who will run your concession stand operations and your ticketing operations. So if you are charging a hefty fee and if you have a lot of money left at the end of the year, does that mean that possibly you didn't mismanagement? Now, and if we think about the fraud pyramid where people look for opportunities to steal, if you are the treasurer or the president and you see that cash surplus, are you not now thinking, maybe I might steal? And then if there's no governance structure in place where somebody else is actually looking at these things and they see we have this cash surplus, surely they won't miss it because we had a surplus last year and the year before and the year before.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know at least I think just from working the concessions and stuff, our soccer team at our high school here, they do have control. So when you open up the concessions, the dad who's running it, they've got a slip of paper. Two people sit there, count out the bills. They sign that it started with X amount of dollars. Then at the end of the night, you sit there and you've got different people working. Two people sit there, they count out the money, they put it in order of the type of bills and everything else. They both sign it. That is the deposit slip that goes with that cash to the bank. Mm-hmm. But I don't know who's got control after that. I don't know if it just takes one person. I think it only takes one person to run to the bank, get cash out to get all your smaller bills to run that. So, I mean, what kind of a control do you put in? Do you require 2 signatures? Or do you have somebody external? Do you have somebody else that's sitting there and balancing, looking at the transactions every single month? I doubt that a lot of these clubs actually have that, where they're looking every month. Is this a normal charge?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. The booster club that I was on 2 years ago, we're no longer at that gym, but we didn't. My wife was asked to be on the booster club as well, and the whole club was 3 people as far as the leadership goes. And we're like, no, I can't be on there and her be on there. That's going to be too much of a conflict. And yeah, there was a lot of microtransactions that we went over the top, making sure we reported it and talked about it. But that was because we were almost paranoid about not being transparent with it, right? But then the club we're at now, great club, but they don't have a booster club. Everything goes through their corporation, basically. So yeah, there's a lot of transparency that's no longer there. So you kind of question things. And you talk about volunteering. We have to volunteer at the 2 competitions that our gym hosts every year. If we don't volunteer, we could pay $100, and then we don't have to volunteer for our shift. Well, where's that money going? What's going on with that? And so, it starts putting those questions in the back of your mind, especially as someone that deals with fraud, right? But since it's not a booster club, since it's not a nonprofit, they could be using it, put in their pocket as profit, and I can't argue it. That's just part of doing business sometimes. But it definitely starts putting those seeds of doubt in your mind, and you start kind of questioning things a bit, also.
Yeah, the parents that are volunteering don't know who paid to not have to volunteer.
Yeah. Are they showing favoritism? And yeah, some of that too. You're right. I try not to think about that.
Well, and that's a cheap rate too. $100 for the entire year to not have to volunteer. Man.
Well, first shift, so it'd be $200, but that's on top of what I already told you I'm paying per month for gymnastics. So it's just for the two competitions is all that is. But I tell you, for gymnastics, my son and I got to volunteer for a shift and watch some college athletes, and we were about 6 feet away from them while they were doing rings and high bar and some of that. So there's no way I'd be paying the money. I mean, you almost can make me pay to go volunteer to be able to watch some of these athletes compete. So it was a really amazing time.
Nice. Okay, so now, what do we think though an organization could do? Like, what could they do, especially a smaller one? You could have two people count the money, but I mean, if it's a husband and wife team and they decide to tag team it, you can't stop collusion. Even if it's not a husband and wife team and they decide to tag team it, you can't stop collusion. I guess data analytics would work well though, because if you see, you had a certain amount of sales and all of a sudden it dropped, but they'd have to have the office manpower to do that.
So yeah, is it something that you get a team of 3 or 5? Like, do you have a parent oversight committee? Get 5 parents that meet once every quarter and go over those. Get, the parents that are putting the money in that really don't run anything. I think that is a good option where it's like, all right, open up your books. Let's go ahead and see what we've been spending all of our money on. I know the big thing used to be like having 2 signatures for transactions at your banking or financial institution. I think that capability is out of the window. I don't think a lot of financial institutions even offer that, because it opens up a whole liability thing for them when you've got checks clearing and everything else. It's not like it used to be. People aren't looking for 2 signatures on checks, blocking automated transactions and stuff like that. So I think a parent oversight committee probably would be the best option.
Well, I know for us, it depends on how complex the organization is. But at the beginning, in fact, probably in the next month or so, we're going to be getting it for this coming gymnastics season. We have all of the competitions listed out, what the cost is for each one is per athlete. So we know how much roughly it's going to be costing us for the next year, and then how much we're going to pay each month. And that way, at the end of the year, well, at least at the Booster Club, we did that. And then we said, okay, we're settling up. You paid in this amount. This was the cost. Oh, these 3 guys were injured, so we had to take out their fees. So we had kind of a reconciliation at the end, and that helped to keep it transparent. If you knew what the costs were, how much money everybody was putting in, and then what the final expenses actually, the actuals were. So having that budget to actual and then reconciling there, and then you got refunds if we overpaid. But that helped to keep it transparent, and we didn't spend a dime that wasn't absolutely needed and approved, because we knew everybody's going to be seeing all of those transactions at the end of the year.
What are your thoughts, Robert? What would you do?
Well, I think I would try to employ some sort of data analytics using Excel. Because, I think once you set it up, about what your average revenue is per year, and what your student count is, and what your expenses are. So at a high level, that would be kind of like the bare minimum, because I think most of them have probably seen an increase in expenses because of inflation. So I think you'd be able to explain small things like that. Then underneath that, I would really monitor the bank statements. If there's a credit card, I would monitor the credit card statement and really scrutinize certain things, especially Amazon payments, especially utility bill payments. I mean, yeah, it did say that they paid the utility bill. I don't think I don't think an association really would have a utility bill, right? Unless it's for a space that they rent, and most don't really rent spaces because you're always out in the field, which is the advantage of having an association. So I think if you look at those transactions on a monthly basis, I wouldn't even do it quarterly. I would do it monthly and then get a good baseline and then just start doing some monitoring thereafter. Either way, it's going to be hard because it's small organization. People are strapped. You're asking people to do things for free. Collusion is real easy to do, especially when you have parents who, may know one another and they may be afraid to rat out another parent.
Right. I know you mentioned not active, or data analytics for Excel, Robert. And I know we just started using this here where I'm working or we're trying it out. It's called Active Data for Excel. It's like $120. So I know when we usually talk about data analytics, right away people are like, okay, well, that's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, $120. And we're trying it out before we expand it for our whole department. So far, it's been pretty cool. I mean, better than me using pivot tables.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty cool tool. Actually, what I'm going to do is, I thought it was more than that, but okay, that's a good price. I'm going to drop a link to it in the chat so that if anyone is interested in it, there we go. I just dropped the link. But yeah, you're right. It's only. Oh wait, no, it's. Oh wait.
I think it depends on how many users you have.
Yeah, see, the business edition is $149, but the professional edition is $300, which I don't know what the difference is.
There's one, it says active data for Excel, 1 year support, phone, 1 business day, email support. Oh, that must be just the support.
They experience
that's still pretty reasonable prices, though. I mean, that's not bad for data analytic tool. I mean, I'm definitely gonna be looking into that for my services. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we haven't even got into everything that it does yet. So we're testing it out.
All right. So you know what? I didn't even say which episode number it was or anything in the beginning today. I just went right to it. Hey, Friday Fraudster, episode number 109. What is your goal? And apparently, the goal of our people today was to steal from $91,000 that we know of so far from their kids' soccer association and go to Disney, have birthday parties, and pay their utility bill. Like Heather said earlier, it's sad to steal from kids. So, Thomas, Christine, before we go, Thomas, what are you working on, man? What's going on? Anything that we should know about?
Well, in 2 weeks, there is some fraud retreat coming up, and I'm going to be out there sponsoring the happy hour. So I look forward to getting as many people drunk as I possibly can. Also, I'm always looking for people that are interested in doing consulting work. Internal audits, Sarbanes-Oxley, IT audit, doing some fraud risk stuff as well. So if you're looking for project work, definitely give me a call. Rob will be, you and I will probably be having a conversation or two here in the near future as well. But definitely give me shoot me an email, shoot me an IM on LinkedIn because business is really growing. It's an exciting time. So thank you all for the support that you've given me, whether it's here on LinkedIn or on Friday Fraudster and all of that. It's fantastic. So I really appreciate it. Christine, how about you?
Nothing new. Working every day. I don't have the stress of consulting like you and Robert do and doing all your crazy stuff that you guys do. But so right now I'm busy mom lifing it with volleyball, soccer, and baseball, and band. So, but I'll miss it. I'll miss it when they're done with that stuff. So I'm gonna try and enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
Definitely right.
And if you're tuning in, I am your resident, I don't know, jack of all trades. Really, I am an audit trainer. I like to train auditors in soft skills. I have course catalog of a ton of courses ranging from interpersonal skills for internal auditors, conflict management, delegation for internal auditors, and internal audit talent management. My newest course is artificial intelligence for the internal auditor, and I'm also working on ChatGPT for the internal auditor. So if you would like to see me at your local IIA chapter, or if you're an organization who can benefit from having customized, personalized training, give me a call. I also do consulting. I work with Thomas a lot because, well, I think he's a pretty swell guy. And so we work together on clients whenever we can. So if you have internal audit, co-sourcing, outsourcing needs, guess what? You'll probably get me and Thomas together. What better thing can there be?
Nothing.
How about a not so soft sell today, Thomas?
I love it. Let's do it. Come on.
Now, while we have you here and we have your attention, if you need to learn how to ask better questions as an internal auditor, because that's the number one skill you should have, check out my book, Ask Better Questions, Get Better Answers, Perform Better Audits. It's doing pretty doggone well in the Amazon bookstore because we like to teach people how to ask better questions. Heather is leaving already. She said, oh, no, it's time to go. Happy weekend, Heather. Enjoy the fun in the sun down there in Jacksonville, Florida, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've enjoyed this episode, right. If you've enjoyed this episode, pass it along to some of your friends. Go sign up for my newsletter. I got some real exciting things coming. All right. So thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.